You pull me in, push me away. You chase my heart, then...
Hey everyone, how's it going? And welcome back to the channel. Now that I've got the 3-inch Gecko build complete, I figured I'd take a couple of minutes, show you guys under the hood, explain a little bit why I set things up the way I did, and then afterwards, I'll show you a little bit of flight footage. Spoiler, these electronics aren't staying in this frame. So what do you say? We fire up the overhead camera, open this baby up, and take a look. Before I actually open this thing up, I'm going to start with my prop selection. These are Gemfan 3052s. I'm going to say they're a little bit aggressive for something that's supposed to be a cinematic build, but I bought them because they're pink and they match the motors. Moving forward, I definitely want to go with a less aggressive prop, especially considering these motors are so powerful. Well, let's get these props off. We'll start at the motors, work our way inward, and we'll go from there. Now that the props are out of the way and we can see a little bit better, I selected these RCINPower. They're 1506 4300 kV motors. I am very impressed with these motors. I think I overdid it a little bit with the kV. They also make a 3000 kV version of these motors, which would probably have been a little bit more mellow for this build. Right now I'm hovering at less than 15% throttle, so if you don't have good throttle control, using such a powerful motor at a high kV can be a little bit difficult to control. But of course now with a lot of the modern technology we have, we can set up a throttle curve, we can dial that back a little bit. I think in the long term I may end up doing that. I think to start I'm going to do a little bit of expo in my throttle, say around 15% or so, maybe 15 or 17%. I'm going to call mid throttle. Maybe add like a 0.25 to the expo and kind of see if that mellows it out just enough around that hover point. But otherwise, these things have a crazy amount of power. Before I pop the top off, I just want to show the Lumenier AXII and how it's mounted. The Gecko frame does come with this rubber mount to retain an antenna, except it is a pain in the butt to get in here. And I've never been a fan of attaching things to the top plate. It just makes it more difficult to work, and you gotta remove this every time you wanna take the plate off. But I am a fan of this particular piece, even though it goes against my rule of nothing attaches to the top plate. Here's the underside of that rubber antenna retainer. Cool piece, but stuck to the top plate. Now that she's all opened up, we can get a little bit better view of the inside. For the camera, I selected the new RunCam Hybird, which of course this is a new design of split camera that comes with its own HD DVR board. I am a much bigger fan of this particular camera than I have been of a lot of the splits in the past. So far the HD recording is excellent, even though I've only really tried it on 1080p 60 frames, but that's mostly due to my own editing limitations. This camera can do up to 4K, and it can also do 1080p, 120 frames, which is something I would really like to try in more of an action environment, maybe chasing some motorcycles, something like that. I think I could get some really good slow motion footage. The one thing I do not like about this camera is the FPV camera. So essentially these are two separate independent cameras and they both work like they're single cameras, but I am not a fan of the FPV camera. The light to dark transition is not fantastic, and also the colors are horrible. I'm hoping that I can fix the colors with some of the settings in the camera. I did get camera control working, connected to my Aikon flight controller. Therefore, I'm hoping that someday in the field, I can make some adjustments and get the colors better. But as of right now, I am not thrilled about the performance of the FPV camera. Overall though, this unit is much more usable than they have been in the past. So again, our DVR board, and right here is the Matek Systems VTX Mini, providing our video transmission. So I'm going to pop these two boards out so we can get a look inside. You can get an idea of how I've wired things up. We'll just slide them aside. Okay, hopefully you can see the O-rings on the underside of the VTX. The reason they're here is to give me a little bit more clearance with my Crossfire receiver that is shoved in between the Aikon ESC and the VTX. And also note how I've routed all my wires. Instead of just soldering them sticking to the outside of all my boards, they're routed to the inside. And by doing that, it allows me to keep the installation of everything super neat and clean. Again, look at the same technique on my flight controller over here, where everything is pointing towards the inside and routing in between everything in my stack. Up here in the front, this is the Aikon F4 2020 flight controller, one of my favorites, basically bang for the buck. This is a small flight controller, it's got a lot of useful features in it, and that's why I'm a fan. And of course, to accompany it on the back side, this is the Aikon 20x20 35 amp BL Heli 32 ESC. So far, I'm pretty happy with this unit. I think it's overkill for this build, but that's okay. It also can support up to D-Shot 1200, not like that matters anymore. If you're going to be using RPM filtering, which I did configure on this quad, and it does fly like butter. A lot of people are comparing the new Betaflight RPM filter to KISS, and I can tell you, they're not the same. The later versions of Betaflight do fly absolutely fantastic, and its performance is better than ever, but it's definitely not the same feel as KISS, so I don't think you can make that comparison. Notably, they're definitely two different flight systems. But anyway, BL Heli 32, this thing's been working out pretty good. As far as other customization goes, I've been sidecar mounting all my capacitors lately. I custom designed this particular mount, essentially to hold this capacitor. You can see it just attaches to the standard M2 standoff, and I've got my wires routed around, going to the positive and negative directly on the battery terminals. On the other side, it's got a buddy. I'm going to make this file available via Thingiverse. It's just my universal mini buzzer mount, and again, this will attach right to a standard M2 standoff. This mount is a little bit more flexible, where it'll fit on a variety of things. You can actually even attach it on an M3 thread if you need to, but this will hold your standard 9mm buzzer. Out on the back side, we've got the Immortal T-mount. I did not design these, I found this on Thingiverse. It could use a little bit of touch-up, but like I mentioned earlier, I'm not going to be using this frame long term, therefore I'm not going to redesign this particular mount. Okay, so that's the general layout. Let's talk about the problem. And the problem is this front metal cage and this solid metal mount. Unfortunately, what's happening, because of the mono chassis and the solid metal mount and aggressive propellers, every single time I touch the throttle, you're able to see vibration in the HD footage. And that just simply is not going to work for this type of build, because its purpose is literally to chase. I want to be using these smaller quads come ice racing time this year, and I can't even give this thing any throttle at all. As soon as I bump it, there's vibration in the footage, and I think it's just simply because those vibrations are being translated from the props, which essentially is where they're originating, but still the vibrations are getting into the frame, translating through the solid metal, and then again through the solid metal mount into the camera. Can't have that. So what am I going to do? Well, like I said, I'm going to replace this frame. I didn't want to go with the iFlight solution because honestly, I'm a little iFlighted out at this point and I wanted to try something different. But in this case, that would have been the right frame selection. And the one that I'm looking at is the IH3. And what is appealing to me is it still has the double stack mount, but it also has a TPU mount specifically designed for these hybrid cameras. I also think it's going to give the camera a lot more protection than this design in the Gecko. I mean, the Gecko was just never made to hold this type of camera. And unfortunately, coming in for a landing, I was a little hot one of the first times as I was figuring this thing out, and I just got that little bump on the landing. She flipped over, and now I got a mark on the top of the camera, and that's not cool. And that tells me that it is literally a matter of time before this camera would be destroyed if I left it in here. And I would really like this thing to work out long term. In a nutshell, there's my Gecko build. Overall, I'm reasonably happy with everything, especially the electronics. Like I mentioned earlier, probably the only thing that leaves a little to be desired is the FPV camera in the Hybird. But I think at this point, with that type of camera, there's always going to be a little bit of compromise somewhere. So we just kind of have to deal with that. Otherwise, this thing's getting a new frame. I'm going to take you along for the journey, and hopefully that's going to solve the problems with the vibrations in the camera. So let's take a look at a little bit of HD footage so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Enjoy!
I wanna breathe you in, baby, but what are we fighting for? We're setting peace for the sacrifice, wanting our hearts just to stay alive. 'Cause when it comes down to you and I, whoa, it's right. Raise my heart, then hit the brakes. You pull me in, push me away. You hold my head underwater until I can't take no more. I wanna breathe you in, baby, but what are we fighting for? We're setting first for the sacrifice, burning our hearts just to stay alive. 'Cause when it comes down to you and me, whoa, it's wild. It's wild, wild, wild love. Wild, wild. Wild, wild.
I think that's about it for this video. I want to mention that we've got Black Friday coming up right around the corner, and some of you guys might be familiar with the fact that my friends at Banggood love hooking me up with coupon codes so I can give to you guys. And I'm mentioning this now because if there's anything that you want and you want to save some cash on it, let me know. I can probably get you a custom coupon code for the Black Friday sale. Of course, just about everything else in the store is going to be on sale at that time as well. But if you've been eyeballing something and you're waiting for the price to drop a little bit, let me know. Hopefully I can hook you up. Just leave a comment in the description, send me an email, hit me up on Facebook. I don't care. Tell me what you want and I'll get you the deal. When you're done with that, make sure you buy something from HotDog FPV. They make the best swag in the business. I mean, hands down. So what else do I have to say? But that's it. That's all I got for this one. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.